Hello, hello, and welcome back to Wheel of Games, where today we're going to be playing Return to Dark Tower. This is a game I've been looking forward to for a very long time. This is one of the ones where I keep trying to get people to play, and I just haven't been able to, so this is going to be a first for me. Thankfully, when I went over all of the various rules and stuff, it looks like it's actually going to be relatively straightforward to play. I'm hoping that the rules will not be enormous for at least one of these videos. This is a restoration game. It was a Kickstarter to sort of reinvent it, bring it into the modern age, so to speak. But this is based around one enormous peripheral. You can see it's got lights going on. So the story for this game is that there was a dark wizard of some such a long time ago. Let me read this out. Long ago, the sorcerer king Azkal built a tower at the crossroads of the Four Kingdoms. Behind its ebon walls, he practiced dark sorcery in his search for power. As Azkal's madness grew, his apprentice, the sorceress Nimet, plotted against him. She stole his wondrous treasures and fled the tower, then recruited heroes from the Four Kingdoms to stop him. One hero prevailed. Azkal was defeated and the tower lay vacant. But now a new adversary has taken up residence. It grows in power, spreading corruption and calling forth wicked creatures from afar. This foe cannot be defeated alone. The heroes of the Four Kingdoms must unite and return to the tower. So, the original game, I believe, was a competitive game for up to 4 players, and it was sort of who can defeat the bad guy first. But this restored game is a cooperative game, although it does feature a competitive mode, where it's basically the last hero standing wins, and you're doing a lot of the same types of things, but it's just not. It doesn't have to be a cooperative game. Basically, there's a retro competitive mode that harkens back. I think it actually is like you go back in time and play the original game kind of a thing. I'm probably just going to be playing the cooperative modes. I do have a couple of expansions for the game, but at least for the beginning, I'm going to be sticking to the basic rules as much as possible. I'll probably play with 2 characters. I think you can play with as few as 1 players, but I think it'd be nice to get at least 2 in. This is also another game that heavily features an app. This one I couldn't get running within the computer to get it live captured. So this is just pointing at a tablet. That was the tower itself saying I've been neglecting it for too long. Tablet run game, which means a lot of the handiwork is really handled by the tablet. There aren't that many decks that we need to worry about and shuffle. We've got potions, quest items, corruptions. We've got 6 gear decks that are just 3 copies of the same items. And really that's it in terms of resources. We've got also these treasure cards. The only ones we need to shuffle, I've already shuffled. I love it when a game doesn't make me shuffle. Let's go over the setup. And I'll go over through the different actions you can take on a turn, and as usual, the last thing we'll do is we'll look at the characters so all the things on that sheet make a lot more sense. So, world setup. Place the game board within reach of everyone. Notably, the board is divided into 4 different quadrants. You've got your south, west, north, and east. Each of these is sort of one of the different 4 players' home territories. If a player isn't in a particular game, like let's say in the 2-player game I'll be playing cooperatively, I'll have characters from the South and East kingdoms. The other 2 kingdoms will just be treated as dormant. Each one of these kingdoms has 15 different territories within it. There are 6 different types of terrain, and they are not evenly distributed. So, it looks like the southern one tends more towards the grasslands and the desert, whereas the northern one is more mountainous. But yeah, the only things we really need to know is there's grassland, desert, mountains. There are, the red one is hills. We've got forests, and I believe there's lakes. It looks like we don't have any lakes in the south, but yeah, there we go. Weeping waters. So yeah, those are the 6 different types of terrain. The Dark Tower itself isn't really a space. When the big bad comes out, I think he comes out onto the board and enters the overall play area. We mentioned the terrain types. The kingdoms are separated by these rivers. These rivers aren't a tile, though. They're really just making it clear where the borders are. Whenever you're moving space to space on adjacent spaces, but when you're going over the river, you just treat it as though the river wasn't there, meaning you can't go from this forest up here to the forest down there. It's really just treated as a solid barrier. You can go across the river. Okay, that's the game board. You'll notice that we've got these different little miniatures on the board, and we'll go over what they mean in a little bit. These are really nice, high quality little miniatures. So the first one is the Citadel. This is basically like your home castle in each one of the kingdoms. Each of the 4 kingdoms has 1 copy of each of the buildings. So the Citadel is like your home castle. You've got a bazaar, basically the place where you can buy goods or gear. You've got these sanctuaries where you can gain spiritual resources, and you've got villages where you can recruit followers, warriors to basically your material resources to help you during battle. Got little bowls for a nice little bowl of skulls. So, world setup. Game board is out. It's meant so that each player is sitting on a different side of the board. With this enormous table, I can't really do that. I'll probably have to stand up to see what's going on in the north, or just refer to the overhead view that I'm seeing on my monitor. Okay, turn on the tower. Each level will rotate. When they finish, slide on the 12 seals to cover the openings. So I sort of referenced this before, but the Dark Tower itself has 3 different levels. It's like top, medium, bottom, and each one of them has one of these little sliding doors. Oh, hush. So there's a total of 12 doors on the Dark Tower, and over the course of the game, it might instruct you to remove, like, say, on the topmost level, on the North Kingdom, remove that one, and it may, like, light up with some kind of symbol that'll make things more difficult in that kingdom. It starts fully sealed, and it sort of powers up as the game progresses. We have placed the 16 buildings on their spaces. Now, set aside the warrior tokens. That's these little red dudes. I got the nice little plastic miniature tokens. So each one's basically a guy with a spear. There's a sword, and you've also got these 5-point tokens. Then you've got these little spirit tokens, which look more like teardrops. They're like your magic or mana kind of a thing. And then you've got skulls. You've got a nice bowl of skulls here. And it does say make sure to count them out. It gives you extras, so I probably have more than 24 in here. You need to have exactly 24 skulls in the supply. Let me just double check this real quick. Yep, glad I double checked. They give you a couple of extra skulls in case you lose them. So I had 26, now we have 24 in our little skull dish. Okay, sort the gear cards into 6 different face-up piles. Each one is just 3 copies of the same card. So shuffle the treasure cards together into a face-down deck. Draw the top 3 cards and place them in a row face-up to create the market. Let me shuffle those. Okay. So shuffle the treasure cards and deal the top 3 in a face-up row to create the market. Okay. What these cards actually mean, I don't even know yet, but these are things that give us bonuses during the gameplay. Okay, looks like my Mansions of Madness comparison was reversed earlier. It's the quest items that we look at the specific ones when we need to. It's the treasure items that I should have shuffled, which means I unnecessarily shuffled all of the quest items. Oops. Okay, shuffle the potion cards together into a face-down deck. So, those will just be sitting right there. And shuffle the corruption cards. These are like your negative bonuses if you, what negative bonuses? These are the penalties that you get if you fail or run out of resources. And they're also one of the ways you can lose the game if you acquire too many of them. Okay, place the companion cards, quest markers, and haggle die near the board. We've got these nifty companion cards. You won't use all of them in any particular game. This is one of those cases where the app is making things a little bit easier for you. Dungeon tiles also off to the side. When it tells me to pull one out, I'll just grab those from over there. And the haggle die. There's one cute little die that comes with this game. Whenever you're buying stuff from the market, you can roll this thing to see if you get, say, better results or potentially worse results. Okay, we've done all of the world setup. a lot of the other stuff is just set to the side for now. So hero setup. It says to put the hero board in front of you. So there are 4 heroes you can play as during this game. You've got the brutal warlord. He excels at like combat type things. He is extra good at getting warriors to his cause. You've got the orphan scion, who specializes in spiritual pursuits. You've got the relic hunter, who excels at picking up treasures. Sort of your item-based person. And you've got the spy master, who excels at moving around the board quickly. Each of these boards is actually extraordinarily well designed. I love them after I took a look. Let's see, can I make this a little bit easier? Because it shows the entire like turn order. Start of turn, do this, then middle of the turn, you've got this set of things that you can do, and then reminder at the end of the turn, do that. So these things are a great reminder system for when you're going over the turn. This really is a very good shorthand for helping you remember everything. And also, something that the characters do is you have special abilities called virtues. So each one of these characters starts with 2 abilities. They have a number of other ones that they can unlock over the course of the game, basically by leveling up, by spending the spiritual resource. And also, the last slot is determined by which of the 4 kingdoms you're starting in. So if you were starting in the north, you would be the champion of the north, and you would have extra special abilities when you're in mountainous terrain. Notably, the north has a lot more mountains, so that makes sense. And each one of these location-based abilities is very much tailored to the terrain that is most prevalent in that particular kingdom, that are able to operate in, it's sort of a favored terrain kind of a thing. Basically, everything goes onto this board. Everything that you can really hold has spaces on this board. You can have up to a total of the 6 virtues. Now, there's also 2 slots on this board for corruptions. If bad things happen, like events, or your characters like fail in a quest, or don't have enough resources to pay some kind of a cost, then you can gain these corruption cards. And these are all randomly shuffled. So whenever you get the condition for a corruption, you would deal one, like it would be face up. And those corruptions stick around. There are a couple of ways, I think, that you can get rid of corruptions, although I don't know what they are off the top of my head. And that can happen up to 2 times, so you basically have 2 penalties that stick with that character throughout the game. If you would gain a 3rd corruption, in the cooperative game, that just means game over for all of the players. If you're playing the competitive game, then just that player would be eliminated. But you cannot have a 3rd corruption. The 3rd corruption is game over. And the last thing you'll see in the bottom is treasures. You can have up to 4 treasures at a time. I believe if you draw or acquire a 5th one or more, then you basically have to discard down to the 4 treasures. There is no maximum number of potions that you can have. Place your hero board in front of you. Place the 3 hero virtue tiles for your character on their board with the inactive side face up. You gain the virtue tile for whichever kingdom you're starting in. You place your hero figure on the space with the citadel in your area. So that's the space with the... thankfully, the citadel is by far the tallest of them. So it's relatively easy to figure out where the citadel is. Also, there's these reminder things that say, yes, the citadel goes here. And let's look, these are also, once again, very nice minis that come with this game. Here's our Spy Master dude. Here is our Brutal Warlord. And I have the, there's little colored clips that you can put onto the base to help them stand out, which I think is also very, very nice. So place your hero figure in the space with the citadel in your home kingdom, and every character has a starting resources of 7 warriors and 1 spirit. Warriors being these red resources, and spirit being the, I guess, light blue or teal sort of teardrop resources. Suppose I'll just set those up for later for myself. So 7 of those, and 1 each of these. So just by the distribution, You can tell that you're going to run through a lot more of these hapless warriors or followers than you are going to have spirits at your disposal. Now we should go into the actual app setup. So this does recommend a first-time game, but let's actually go into the start new game now. And I'm going to unmute this. So new game. Okay, you want to reconnect to the tower. Yeah, because it wasn't in-game. I imagine it sort of, yeah, deactivated, went to sleep. Subscribing, connecting. Okay, let's calibrate again. It's thinking. Each of the 3 levels is rotating around on the inside. Yeah, that was the shot that I wanted to get. Okay. Back over to the tower. The tower is ready. Okay. We're going to be playing cooperative. There is a sort of hard mode called gritty difficulty. It's my first game. I don't think I'm ready for that. You can also use seed, like if you've, I don't know, if you want to play the exact same experience or something, or like maybe retry a game and you want the same random events to happen throughout it, you can give it a seed. Okay, on this page you specify which of expansions you want to play with, like the Alliances one. I have that one, but not playing with it. Likewise, there's the Covenant expansion. No idea what that does. It looks cool, though, based on all the stuff it's adding to the board. But we are going to be playing the core game. Player count. Now, technically it's 1, but I'm planning to play with 2 characters. So, and because it's cooperative, I think that is entirely okay. Okay, select our main goal. There are different, sort of different primary quests that you can play with. And let's see, what do we have? Let's raise an army. But yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that you... I think that was roughly 10 or so that we went through, or you could even just select random. So just like even in the core game, there's a bunch of different things you can do, and because of the way like the randomness of the skulls and the events that the app's going to play out, I think this has a good amount of replayability. So it recommends recover Azkal's treasures as the initial starting scenario. Retrieve the matching companion card. So let's see, that is Zaida the Ifrit. So for recover Azkal's treasures, this is basically our reminder goal for this mission. So as the main companion, Azkal's treasures can draw the adversary from the tower. Gather the treasures to have Zaida the Ifrit perform the ritual if you are virtuous enough. And a special event, Zaida gives treasures. If I flip to the other side, this is the companion's informational stuff. Spend 1 treasure to gain wild advantages once per turn. So companions are basically positive boons that you can get throughout the course of the game. So for each one of the like main goal quests, you essentially have a main companion who's like the person who's driving the game for you, sort of like the main quest giver for this particular game. But the other companions still exist, and they may show up during the game, and you can like complete their conditions to get like maybe their abilities. But each game you've got like a main companion who you're playing with. So we are playing with Zaida the Ifrit to recover the treasures, to lure our adversary out of the castle. Oh, that was the tower doing that, not the app. Okay, and adversaries. So not just the like your goal, but also which adversary you're playing against. I believe Ash Strider is also the recommended first one. It's nice that it defaulted to that. Just double check. Yep, that's the recommended one. Okay, and let's just scroll through what the options are for this. So Ash Strider sows fire and chaos. It adds skulls to buildings, which is basically like spreading darkness and chaos across the land. It can even set the rivers on fire. Cool. And yeah, there are special unique tokens that only some of the adversaries use. The Bane of Omens. He stalks one of the heroes mercilessly, draining warriors and giving corruptions. Neat. So yeah. The Empress of Shades. Yeah, each time that's the tower itself making these noises. Nice. So the Plague Giver. Ooh, he is fun. can seemingly bend the tower to its will, breaking seals and manipulating glyphs. A curse upon the natural world, twisting foes into vicious mutated versions of themselves. And this dude. Ah, the rot. The Ice Herald. So yeah, once again, there were, I think, almost a dozen different foes that you can have. So you can mix and match those things as you will. So again, nice replayability. So another thing that you have is you have foes that appear during the game, and you can select who do you want to fight against. Now, there's a level 2 foe, a level 3 foe, a level 4 foe, and then the level 5 foe is the adversary that comes out of the Dark Tower, basically the game's boss. You're only going to encounter one of these different, of the level 2 foes. So, do we want to fight Oryx this game, or do we want to fight Brigands? And whenever a level 2 foe comes out, it's going to be one of those. Now, one of the things it shows on underneath them is like humanoid or stealth, undead, melee. Those are like the attributes of that particular foe. And each one of those attributes is something that they're like special skills that your characters can have. The Dusky Cloak gives you 1 stealth advantage. And you can basically play those advantages against the enemies whenever you're doing like battle. So you could use the stealth skill. That would be effective against the Brigands or the Shadow Wolves, but not useful against the other two. So this gives you an idea of what skills are going to be useful for you during this game. And I think if you were being extra clever, you could try to pick all humanoids and then power your characters up against humanoids. That's something we could definitely do. But since right now I have absolutely no idea what's best, I've got 4 options. So I'm going to get out the last one. There's the D4. So what have we got? Okay, I got a 3, so that's the Shadow Wolves. Okay. And also, when we pick them out, I've got a number of these foe tokens. So I've got the Brigands, there's a number of different tiles for them. But I need to pull out all of the Shadow Wolves tiles. I've dug out the Shadow Wolves tokens. I'm not sure if it means anything in particular, but there are 8 each of the Brigands and Shadow Wolves, and 6 each of the Oryx and Spine Fiends. Next, we've got our level 3 foes. And so, obviously, they're stronger than the previous ones. There's also fewer of each of them. So we can play with the Frost Troll, the Lemur, the Clan of Nuri, Widowmaid Spider. So our D4 says we've got the Lemur. Sounds like a banshee. Okay, let me grab those. Okay, we've got our Lemur tokens out. It also has that little reminder that they are magic and undead. The other side just focuses on the art portion. And not sure if important, but there are 4 Frost Trolls, 5 each of the Clan of Nuri and the Spiders, and 6 of the Lemur. And just like before, we'll leave them off to the side. Now, our level 4 foe. Personally, I love dragons. I don't know what a Mormo is, but it looks Golem-esque. Ooh, undead stealth. A Striga, also undead, and a Titan, humanoid melee. If I just picked, I like dragons, but then again, these are what we're going to be facing against. Yeah, I'm just doing side quests. Got dragons on my shirt. So who are we going up against? Number 2, a Mormo. Okay, here is our Mormo. Now, there was only 1 Titan, 2 each of the Dragon and Striga, and there were 4 Mormos. So, I figure out what that means for us. And, of course, you also have 1 token for the boss. This is the level 5 end of the game one. The words on him are Magic and Beast. So if we review the ones that we've selected, our level 2, we have Beast Stealth, so Beast will be important. Our level 2 is Undead Magic. Our level 3 is Undead Stealth. So the things that are popping up the most are Undead, beast, stealth. Those are the particular skills that we need to keep in mind as we're going through. Confirm our setup. This looks good. Let's see. Oh, that gives us the seat. Okay, so our setup. Place 2 skulls on each village and citadel. Okay, so the skulls, again, these represent like fear, corruption. This is the dark forces harassing and attacking the countryside. So each village and citadel, that's what the particular spaces are for each of these. Thankfully, the skulls are standing out quite nicely. So each village, those are the small ones, and citadels are the big ones. So we're starting with a whole bunch of initial corruption on the board. Let's see, each one of these particular buildings can only hold 3 skulls on them. If you would put a 4th one onto a particular building, it is instead destroyed, and whichever player has like the character from that kingdom gains a corruption whenever one of their buildings gets destroyed. So that's a reason to play defensively. Another note, at the end of every player's turn, you drop one of these skulls into the top of the tower. And if you don't have a skull to place, then the game is over and the players lose. There's always a total of 24 of them. So if you don't like cleanse the skulls off of the board and put them back in the supply, then you've got maximum a 24-turn clock. But this thing is giving us 4 in each kingdom, so it's used 16 of the 24 right at the start. Now, thankfully, if a kingdom doesn't have a player in play, if the buildings in the Western Kingdom get destroyed and there's no player corresponding to it, then there's no character to take that damage. It's sort of a, well, you don't have enough players to handle all of the stuff, so you don't have to defend those things. But if the building's destroyed, then you can't use its ability to gain resources. Set up part 1 of 2. And take the 4 River of Fire tokens from the box. I set those aside. But these handy tokens are actually quite large. River of Fire. So you have to sacrifice 6 warriors when you cross the Rivers of Fire. But it just said to take the 4 of them out of the box. We're not putting them onto the board directly, but like what they would look like is like that. You just set one of the borders between regions just on fire now. Whew, okay, we've got those out also just to the side as a supply. The first player gains Zeta as a companion. Okay, I wasn't ready for this part yet. I was hoping to get to the start, and then we would, like once we got into the starting state, I would go over the rest of the rules. So just to pick 2 characters to play with, I believe that the Brutal Warlord should be very straightforward. So we'll say he's one of them, and the Relic Hunter. I like playing with items, so we'll have red and blue. Okay, split everything down so it's a little bit more reachable and hopefully easy enough to read. Okay, so we are going to have our Warlord be the champion from the east. He's over at the Citadel, and being from the east means he has special advantages in the hills, those reddish terrain. And our Relic Hunter, I thought was thematically appropriate to be the champion from the south, because that gives you special bonuses in deserts. So we've got specialties in red and yellow for this game. So now, the first player gains Zeta, or Zaida, the Efreet as a companion. And that means that they are going to be staying with our Warlord friend. Could put them off to the side. I guess I've got the space to put them up here as well. And it stands out a bit more visually. And we've still got our market down here. I moved the gear off to my right so that there's just a little bit more space on the visible area of the board. Their special ability is like spend a treasure to gain advantages, and the Relic Hunter is based on treasures. So I guess I'll swap the Relic Hunter to be our first player. You can pick anyone you want, and then I believe it goes clockwise around the table from there. So our first player will actually be the Relic Hunter. Okay, foe spawn. We get wolves are going to start in the Rimeweld. Each one of these spots on the board does have a... Ah, yes. So there's actually a name for each of these, which helps distinguish between them. So we've got wolves in the Rimeweld. Next up. Oh, yeah, it's also saying we've got more wolves in Egan's End. All of them right next door to our good friend, the Warlord. Yep, it's also true that it's not, like, it doesn't know where I've placed my characters as, like, that I'm in the south and the east. Okay, we've got in the Pine Barrens, which is the southern portion of the board. Oh yeah, you can still see it on... Yeah, I've got the zoom camera up. And also at Three Rivers, over in the east. More of them in the Forest of Shades. Are we going to spawn everything on the board? Greater Tombstones. Does it somehow know that I've placed my stuff in the east? Okay, Lemur. Over in Akartus. That's at a sanctuary. Is the building over there? Oh, really? Really? Okay. I think that's our setup, and then... Okay, reminding us of... So recover Azkal's treasures. The treasures of the Sorcerer King can be harnessed by the virtuous to draw the adversary from the tower. Bring them to Zeta's Sanctum, and they will complete the ritual. So our goal is to quest in the Iron Tops tile, while you have 4 of Azkal's treasures and 5 virtues. Azkal's treasures have the word Azkal in their name. Now there should be like a reminder token for this. If there isn't, then I will just put some kind of marker there to indicate that like the Iron Top Mountains are where we need to go in the end. Let's see. Well, actually, I can just put our... I can take the base off of an unused character, and I can just put that as a reminder that the Iron Tops, that's where we want to quest once we have acquired all of the things that we need to meet this quest. So 4 of the old Sorcerer King's treasures and 5 virtues. Now, I don't know what virtues are yet. Oh, I see, 5 virtues. Each one of these tiles is a virtue. So, like, our Relic Hunter starts with Precise, Prepared, and Champion of the South. So to have 5 virtues, he would need to unlock 2 of his 3 locked abilities, and then he would have 5 virtues. Okay, so he basically has to level up twice. And have 4 treasures. Okay, so the game is divided into months, and the number of turns that happen in each month depends on the number of players. So in total, you have 6 months to complete the game. Well, it says that you don't know exactly when a month will end, but based on the number of players, that sort of dictates the number of turns that will occur within each month. If you have more players, you get more turns during the month. Yeah, 1 player, you average 6 turns per month, 2 players, 7 turns. On average, we will get 7 turns before we get to month 2. And if you have not defeated the adversary by the end of the 6th month, then you lose. There are some things that happen monthly, like month-long quests that are only available for that particular month. So when the game is telling you that this is a, we have started the next month, just think of it as like your countdown timer. Okay, month 1, turn 1. Okay, so we have a companion quest. Calm Before the Storm, no quest. Adversary, oh, okay. So what it's telling us is during the first month, they are not giving us any extra quests to worry about. The companion quest is something where if you met its conditions, you would gain that companion, and therefore bonuses. The adversary quest is something where if you don't complete it before the end of the month, then the adversary does something, and that makes things tougher. And the main goal is just reminding us, have 5 virtues and 4 Azkal's treasures, and then do some exploration in the Iron Tops. The different icons If you want to battle a monster, you'd click on that one and you would go into the interface for that. The middle one is questing. So basically go on an adventure in a dungeon or completing a quest. And the third one, I believe, is the adversary status. That's supposed to be like the ring around the dark tower. Or just check foe status. Okay. So each of the different foes has sort of different threat levels, where the more of those little circles that are filled in, the more dangerous they are. And the longer that they stay in play, they sort of get more dangerous as time goes on. And okay, now we are ready to go over the rest of the rules. We're basically at the start of the game now. So it has a nice concepts to know about heroes. I've gone over a lot of this already. It tells us like what warriors are and what spirit is and what virtues are. But the most important thing that we haven't talked about yet are advantages. So the advantages are essentially skills that your character has, or like special abilities to fight that particular type of thing or deal with that kind of a challenge. They are divided into 6 specific types. We saw a lot of those when we were selecting our foes. The 6 types are Beast, Humanoid, Undead, Magic, Melee, and Stealth. So those are the 6 skills that you can have, and the more of them that you have, the more of them that you can bring with you into any particular battle. So anytime that you need to do a skill check, such as when you're fighting a foe or you're questing in a dungeon or fighting the adversary or something, it will say, like in the case of the foe, Beast Stealth. So you would, when you were going into combat against that foe, you would count up all the various advantages you have that match those categories, and those are the number of sort of buffs that you can bring with you when you're doing that fight. So examples of advantages. Some of the characters start with advantages of a specific type. So the Brutal Warlord always has a melee advantage. Whenever he's battling, he gets 1 wild advantage. So a wild advantage is literally a wild card. You can use it against any type of a thing. Skills with the black background are always active. That's also the case if you're looking at like these items from like this treasure item. Hey, this gives you a skill, but also 1 undead advantage. It makes you better at fighting the undead. Some of these skill cards, or the gear cards that you can pick up, like this longsword. If you're carrying a longsword, you are better in melee combat. And that's more advantages you can take with you into battle. Or if you're doing some kind of a dungeon and it has a melee check, these brass talismans give you a magic advantage. There are some other types that are conditional. So here's an example from the Relic Hunter. He's got Inventive. So for this one, if he spends 4 potions, he can just immediately remove a foe from his space. So this one is more of a gray background because it has a cost to activate. So it's not something that's automatic or always in effect. Like when it says spend, you basically discard them without getting whatever bonus that potion would give you. So advantages are skills. You've got the 6 types and the wild that can be used to meet any of the different conditions. Whenever you're in a battle or a dungeon and you're spending advantages, there is a maximum of 10 advantages that you can spend on any particular battle or quest. Another thing is if you gain items, like in the middle of the dungeon somehow, you immediately get those bonuses. But if you spend something, like if you end up losing an item or like you spend a potion to gain an ability, you have that for the rest of the dungeon. In the case of things like potions, where you don't necessarily know that you're going to need them at the start, then I believe you can choose to use them in the middle. Like you can activate a potion during the dungeon to get the additional advantages. If you don't use the advantages, they are lost at the end of the battle. So if you use a potion and you don't, like if it gives you 2 advantages and you don't end up using both, the extra ones are lost at the end. Let's see, items. Yep, I went over the limits. There's no limit on the potions. You can have 1 of each type of gear, up to 4 treasures per character, and no limit on quest items. Corruptions. I talked briefly about them. They're penalties that stick with your character. You gain a corruption in 3 different conditions. If a event, battle card, or dungeon makes you lose resources that you do not have. So if you're in a fight and the battle card that comes up for let's say the wolves, says lose 6 warriors, and I don't have 6 warriors left to lose, then I would gain a corruption instead. If you fail a quest, and the outcome of that failed quest instructs you to gain a corruption, that's the second way you get corruptions. And the third way is when a building in your home kingdom gets destroyed. You cannot gain more than 1 corruption per event, battle, or dungeon room. So if you're forced to lose warriors and spirit, it all just wraps up into 1 corruption that you gain. If you would ever gain a 3rd corruption, the players lose the game. Press the Game Lost button found on most screens in the app. Nice to know. It is possible for heroes to remove corruptions, and if you manage to do so, the removed ones go on the bottom of the deck. And I mentioned companions. They're allies who aid your efforts. Every game there's 1 main companion. Some quests let you recruit other companions who will provide their abilities to the hero they accompany, so the companions are linked to a specific hero. When a quest to gain a companion is completed, the companion joins the hero who completed the quest and will accompany the heroes for the rest of the game. And everything else about the heroes I already covered in the various introductory things. So the kingdoms, I already went over the terrain types. It's divided into the 4 different sectors with 15 spaces apiece. The 4 buildings, each of them has a unique effect when you use the reinforce action. Reinforce is basically get more resources. Or the skulls. The skulls represent the growing influence of evil. They make foes and events more threatening and can destroy buildings. When skulls emerge from the tower, or added due to events like the start of the game, they must be placed on buildings. As seals on the tower are removed, skulls will emerge with greater frequency. Each building can hold up to 3 skulls. If a 4th would be placed on a building, that building is instead destroyed. If players ever have to take a skull from the supply and there aren't any, the heroes lose the game. When a building gets destroyed by having the 4th skull, or when a 4th skull would go on top of it, that building is destroyed. You remove the building and the 3 skulls that were on top of it from the game. Those 24 skulls you started with at the very beginning before anything happened, now that's reduced to 21 or 18. And if you run out of them, the game's over. So destroyed buildings take the 3 skulls with them. The 4th skull that would have gone on top of it does get returned to the supply, though. And so they limit, and of course, the player whose home kingdom that building was in gets a corruption. If the building that's destroyed was in nobody's home, then nobody gets that corruption. Okay, glyphs. So underneath those seals on the building, oh, it lit up again. So underneath these little door seals, there's actually different lights that can light up that have different meanings. So let's see if I can get this to show up. So there are 5 things that can light up from that tower, and if the light is facing the kingdom that you're currently in, you have to spend extra spirit in order to take the corresponding action. So it's sort of like I guess like a beholder's eye. It denies that thing from being done in the area that it's facing on the board. Now foes, like these wolves and that one lemur. In each game, you will face 4 types of foes, including the adversary. The app will tell you when the foes appear and on which spaces. Each one has a matching card. So the level. Well, actually, yeah, I should just bring out the different foe cards. Nice. I didn't even realize that's what these cards were for. But they're very handy sort of shorthands for what these things do. So the first thing is the level, which is how many cards you draw when battling them. So more cards basically means more skill tests that you have to pass when you're facing them. So these level 2 wolves, you're going to have to draw 2 cards, 2 tests that you need to overcome in order to defeat them, remove them from the board. And the lemur is 3, and so on. But the traits that it has on there. Let's see, the other side. Yeah, the other side just has the traits. So like level 2, Stealth Beast. And then the more detailed bit on the opposite side shows, like, oh, stealth foes tend to steal potions from you. And beast foes tend to make you lose more warriors. And if this particular foe has their event activate, then they hunt you down and make you lose warriors. That's great. I didn't realize that's what these cards were for. And then our boss's card. So our boss is a level 5 magic beast. And the Ash Strider Himself, guess unique ability, adds skulls to buildings, and he hurts heroes in the current kingdom based on the number of skulls in the kingdom. Nice. And his event also adds skulls to buildings. Taking your turn. So you perform the following steps in order. And this is, again, a spot where those amazing character reference sheets are just golden, because it has this wonderful turn order description that's going to be exactly what we're going to talk about here. There we go. Start of turn. So every character has a unique start of turn thing that they do. In the case of the Orphan Scion, our example, their start of turn ability, called the Banner ability, the Scion gains 1 spirit. In the case of our Brutal Warlord, their Banner ability gives them 6 warriors. Our Relic Hunter, his Banner ability, he gains 1 potion. Okay, then in the middle of your turn, which is the largest portion of this, so you have 3 different things that you can do in any order. The first one is movement. Most of the characters can move 3 spaces. Spy Master, their special thing is they get to move 4 spaces, so that they're the exception. You can move 3 spaces, and you can split that movement to allow you to take the other actions in the middle. So you could move a space, battle a wolf, and then move 2 more spaces and like to a building to use its reinforce ability. So the movement absolutely can be divided however you like. Within this heroic action phase, you do have the ability to spend 1 spirit to double the move. You have to do that before you start moving. The heroic action, you have one sort of main action that you can do on your turn, and you can only do 1 of the 3. The first one is called Cleanse, and that removes all of the skulls from your space. Now, notably, all of our characters have started on a citadel, and one of the very first things that happened, like in the game setup, was it put 2 skulls on every citadel in every village. So we could start by taking the Cleanse action to remove those skulls from the citadel that we're standing on. Let's see, the second one would be to battle. So if I wanted to battle the wolves on the space, so in the case of our Brutal Warlord, he's surrounded by all these wolves, and he's great at fighting, so it'd be great to send him out there. But because I can only do 1 of the heroic actions on any given turn, he can only either do the cleanse on his starting citadel or fight one of the foes on that turn. He can't do both because each one of them is a heroic action, and you can only choose 1 of them on any given turn. So battle, and that's then you do the skill checks and go through the battle with those wolves. Or the last one is quest, which is actually very similar to the battle thing. The quest is a series of skill checks. Typically, the quest is something that you would do, like exploring a dungeon. Right now, no dungeons have spawned on the map yet. One thing that we've seen that was called a quest was once we're ready to do the finale and draw out the adversary, there's a quest at the Iron Tops Mountains. So that is an example of something we could take the questing action with. Examples of like dungeons that could pop out is this one is a shrine. A shrine dungeon has spawned on the board, and it involves magic tests. Or this tomb. Well, you're probably going to want the undead ability when you explore the tomb. So those are examples of some of the types of dungeons that would appear on the board. And when you're on one of those, you could take the quest action. There's also the companion thing and the adversary quests. Those are going to have a thing that comes out onto the board, and then you can do that quest in that particular location. So quest is the third heroic action. So on your turn, you can either remove the skulls, or you can engage in a battle, or you can quest in a dungeon. And the little thing over on the right side, after you've taken one of the heroic actions, but only if you've taken one of the heroic actions, you get to gain 2 spirit. That's sort of your reward for being heroic. Now, the third thing that you can do, besides movement and heroic actions, is reinforce. And this is basically getting resources from one of the buildings that's on the board. And it even has very nice reminders as based on the symbols of what each of them does. And this actually tells you on the board exactly what they do. If you're on the Citadel and you reinforce, then you can gain 1 potion for free. Or if you spend 5 spirit, you can gain a virtue. So it looks like that level up thing I was talking about, you have to do at a Citadel. which is your starting location. The citadels are like your home base, the home castle that you're based out of. Now, the sanctuaries, those are like the spiritual places. So if you reinforce there, you gain a spirit. And if you spend five spirit at a sanctuary, you can remove all of your corruptions. We have found the way to get rid of those corruptions. The villages. If you reinforce at the villages, then you gain 6 warriors. But if you also spend a spirit, you gain 12 warriors. So look, just based on the exchange rate here, we're going to be going through warriors at a very high clip. And finally, at the bazaar, for free, you can gain a gear item, which we've seen can give you advantages. And if you spend 2 spirit, you can gain 1 treasure. To reiterate what all of the different gears do, well, let's go over all the gear right now. Okay, quickly go over the 3 we showed before. So the longsword gives you a melee advantage. Brass talisman gives you a magic advantage. And the dusty cloak would give you a stealth advantage. Now the 3 we haven't seen yet, one of them is leather armor. Prevent up to 2 losses per battle card. So save some of your warriors, or at least not go through them quite as fast. I guess that means you're taking a couple of hits instead of them. That's why I like to think of it as health. Otherwise, you're really, really you're losing a lot of men here. Okay, next up we've got trusted maps, and that increases your base move by 1, gets you around the board quicker. And the last of the standard gear items is blessed scepters. After you reinforce, remove 1 skull from the building on your space. So you don't have to take a separate cleanse action. You can use the Citadel's reinforce ability and you get 1 skull off of it as you do it. So that's really good for action economy. Okay, when you are doing the reinforce action, you have the option of rolling the haggle die. We've got this d6, and if you roll it, then you have the potential for different good or potentially bad results to happen that modify your reinforce action. There are 5 different faces on these dice. Notably, one of them is blank. That means the reinforce just happens as normal. We've got this potion-looking thing. If you roll this side, then you gain a potion. We've got this gear-looking thing. After you reinforce, you get to pick up 1 gear. That's nice, like one of the long swords and so forth. You've got this thing that looks like the warrior symbol, and it's got the number 3. So if you roll this side, you get to gain 3 warriors with your reinforcement. And the last thing that shows up, there are 2 of these on the die, and this is sort of an angry merchant shaking his head and going, no. So if you roll this side of the die, then that cancels your reinforce action. So you don't even get the basic thing, which means there's a risk when you're rolling the haggle die. So this is a nifty sort of a push your luck bonus kind of a thing you can use whenever you're reinforcing at a building. And so reinforce is basically interact with a building. At the end of every turn, you drop 1 skull from the supply into the dark tower. So 1 for my little dish, and you just drop it in. It's got sensors in there, so it knows that is the end of a turn, and that triggers the app to do things. Let me generate events and do stuff at the end of the turn. One of the things it does is all these little different levels on the inside are going to spin around, and based on the number of doors that are open, skulls might pile up behind one of those doors, for example, or they might come out of the very, very bottom. There's a space, so skulls always can come out, but the more of these doors that open, the more likely it is that a skull's going to pop out at any one of these event times. So when skulls pop out of the tower, they'll pop out of one of the 4 sides, and whichever hero has their home in that kingdom, so south, east, northwest, whoever is from that kingdom, they choose which of the buildings that skull goes onto. When you reach 4, it will destroy a building, but there's also negative effects, like those skulls can power up foes that are nearby. Now, if you've got kingdoms where the corresponding player isn't in the game, like I'm playing south and east, so if skull comes out in west or north, then whichever player just dropped the skull into the tower gets to make the choice of which building the skull goes onto in that kingdom. After you've dropped the skulls in and placed any that have popped out, then events can happen. So the app will generate events that will happen as a result of ending the turn. Read it aloud, follow the instructions, with the player who dropped the skull into the tower making any choices that are required. Once the event is resolved, press confirm in the app. Repeat as needed for each event. So it says events happen at the end of most player turns, and there could be multiples. And once you've done all of the different events, then the next player can place their turn. So at this point, we know pretty much everything we need to play. You do have the capability of trading resources with other players. So once during your turn, you may trade with heroes on your space, as long as all of the players agree. You may give and take warriors, spirits, items, and companions, but you cannot trade virtues or corruptions. It doesn't look like that takes any actions. One other thing that's very useful to know, when you're battling like a normal foe, it's basically you either defeat it or you don't. Draw a number of battle cards equal to the level, and each one of them is like a skill test you need to pass. If you pass all of them, then you've defeated the foe. If not, then you have not defeated the foe. You must resolve at least one battle card. But notably, if you are delving into a dungeon or fighting the adversary, any partial successes, so like if you've explored 2 rooms out of the dungeon, then those 2 rooms are automatically cleared if you go back into the dungeon next turn. So you can complete a dungeon over several attempts without like losing all of your progress each time. Likewise, fighting the adversary, if you defeat one of its battle cards or something on the first day, you can take them down in multiple attempts. The ways that the game can end, there's a bunch of ways to lose the game. If a hero gains their 3rd corruption at the end of the 6th month, or when you run out of skulls in the supply. Then you press that little crying eye symbol to indicate that you've lost the game in the app. To win the game, you must complete the main goal and then defeat the adversary. So 1 quest, 1 battle to end it in victory. So we are ready to actually start playing now. Woo!